Good morning, everyone, and welcome into episode 16 of Wake and Take. We are on now week 4 of this bad boy, and I'm glad to be back with you guys this Monday. We're going to be talking about all the news from this weekend, at least all the important stuff, and answer your questions at the end, like usual. I've got the Instagram, I've got the TikTok, I've got the Twitter, I've got the YouTube. We're all watching the Wake and Take right now. Thank you, everyone that is with me, that is watching. Thanks for doing it. Let's go ahead and get into today's episode. All right, so really, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter show as compared to some of the ones from last week. As we know, last week the free agency officially began, so we were seeing move after move after move after move, and it was honestly getting overwhelming seeing how many damn moves were coming in. But this weekend, a lot lighter, and as the days go on, a lot lighter, because the top of the market players, they're starting to leave. Before we get into all of the signings that did happen, I just want to highlight some players here that I wrote down that are still available that kind of make me scratch my head. So Devin Singletary still hasn't worked out a deal. Damian Harris still hasn't worked out a deal. Kareem Hunt and Jerick McKinnon still haven't worked out a deal. Those are 4 running backs that, obviously we're all expecting them to make some deal at some point, to put the pen to paper at some point. Devin Singletary and McKinnon, I feel like, are prime candidates to return to their teams. I feel like that would make the most sense given what they've done, the role that they have. And I mean, Damian Harris, he's not going to go back to the Patriots given they signed James Robinson. That would make no sense. That would be pretty redundant. And I'm with Kareem Hunt. I honestly don't have much of an opinion or understanding of what's going on at all. I haven't heard any rumblings. I don't know if NFL teams are still kind of scared about his past, his little issues that were going on. So he's still, I haven't even heard him talking with teams, to be honest. So I feel like he might be a kind of guy that just goes back to the Browns, just since that's the only organization that's taken a chance on him. But he is the kind of player that we could see sign like a 1-year, like $3 to $4 million deal with some running back needy team. And then there's a few wide receivers that we're still looking at. And this one's big to me. I want to see where DJ Chark ends up. I don't know what's really going on here. I was expecting him to be kind of the top of the class, to be honest. He's an athletic guy. And he hasn't really done too much. He met with the Panthers this weekend, which we'll talk a little bit more about them here in a second. But that's really the only team he's met with. I don't think he's going to re-sign with the Lions, given they have Jamison Williams. So DJ Chark still available. Odell Beckham, of course, still available. But that kind of makes a tinge of sense, to be honest. Kenny Golladay, Julio Jones. What are you going to expect? Jarvis Landry, kind of another one of those just older guys that they're going to hang around. And then Mecole Hardman's still available. I feel like he should just resign with the Chiefs, if I'm being honest. It's not like he's done too much, right? But he is still a good athlete, still a fast guy who fits that offense well enough. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the actual news, the actual stuff that have gone on. Those are the players that are still available for some reason at the wide receiver and running back position. Adam Thielen did sign with the Panthers, and the Harry Snowman asked in the YouTube chat, has Adam Thielen reached his ceiling? I feel like the best years are behind him with the Vikings. That's the Adam Thielen that I think we're all gonna remember and love. But it's important to note here, it's a 3-year deal that he just signed with the Panthers. 3 years. He's 32 years old and just signed a 3-year contract, $25 million with 14 of it guaranteed. That's a massive contract. I was blown away when I saw that. And it makes sense why he didn't want to stay with the Vikings, because they were not going to pay him that way. He's going to get $10 million officially this season. Which obviously it's front loaded given his age, but the fact that they signed him that long shows that he feels like he's in good shape. They feel like he's in good shape to at least give it 2 years. I feel like we're going to see him for at least 2 years now. This core though, Adam Thielen, Terrace Marshall, Laviska Shenault. Woo! Woohoo! That's exciting. That's some good stuff right there. If I'm a Panthers fan, I am just so excited for 2023 to kick off, seeing whatever quarterback throw the ball to Thielen, Marshall, and Chenault. Woohoo! That's just exciting stuff. Am I right? Um, it's just so bad. It is just the least exciting thing I've ever looked at. Hayden Hurst, of course, is the tight end that they brought in. I think he'll be fine. I think all of these guys are going to be totally fine, and they'll have their weeks where they go for like 60 yards and a touchdown. You'll never know which one does it. And it's good enough. It's the most serviceable wide receiver core I've ever looked at. And hopefully they bring in a true like wide receiver one, or just one more like really good wide receiver two. It would be sick if they brought in DJ Chark. That's something Jack Kavanaugh has been talking about on Player Profiler today, is getting both of them in. But yeah, I mean, they still need a little bit more help on that wide receiver core for sure, because that is just Thielen, Marshall, Chenault. That is the least exciting thing. Fun little Chenault story. I just feel like sharing this. There's a restaurant in Atlanta here, and they have an NFL Network sign from like, I guess like Chenault's rookie year with the Jaguars, and it's got like Odell Beckham on it. It's got like Saquon Barkley. It's got like all of these star players on it. And then for some reason, front and center is our guy, Laviska Shenault. And every time I see that little poster, I get a little giggle. I get a little chuckle that Laviska Shenault has made like the all-star NFL Network advertisement for some local restaurant. But that's, I don't know why I'm sharing it with you guys, but I thought it was kind of funny. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to really more just unappealing, unexciting, really wide receivers. The Falcons are bringing in Mack Hollins. It's interesting to me that they keep going back to the Raiders well for wide receivers. As we know, last season they brought in Bryan Edwards, and he was, for all intents and purposes, unproductive. And now they're going back to it. They're bringing in Mack Hollins on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Obviously not a lot of money. They're not expecting too much from him, and they just want tall bodies around the team. Their top 4 pass catchers, if you're including Mack Hollins as one of those, and Jonnu Smith is the other, outside of Drake London and Kyle Pitts, they're all 6'3" or taller. They all run about the same speed, with Mack Hollins being the fastest with a 4.53 40, and Jonnu Smith being the slowest with a 4.62 40. So all within a tenth of a second in terms of speed, all about the same height. And I mean, that's just what the Falcons tried to do last season too. They just wanted tall bodies. It kind of worked out for them a decent bit, but not too much. This is a team that's going to still run the ball plenty, and we're still going to be talking about probably Desmond Ridder, at least to begin the season. Not really beating the world, not being a world beater, but, still being productive, like 30 to 40 rush yards, getting the ball forward. I'm assuming the Falcons will look a lot like they did last year with Marcus Mariota, where it was a movable offense. They were getting 2 or 3 yards every single play and consistently getting first downs. They just weren't really having the big plays. Hopefully they connect on a few of those Kyle Pitts deep shots a little bit more, because that was something that was really hard to watch last season. Just Pitts either being missed or dropping a deep shot just shouldn't happen. They started connecting with Damiere Byrd a little bit. I think he'll be back. I think he's back off the top of my head. I don't quite remember, but he's kind of a field stretcher role for that offense. So I don't know. I like the team. I think that they'll be totally fine. I think I've said it for a few episodes now. I think Desmond Ridder is a good buy in fantasy football. He's not too expensive, and I do think he'll at least be starting for the first few weeks of the season. And then, Taylor Heineke might come in if he sucks. But I don't know if Desmond Ridder will really suck. I think he'll just be fine, and they'll probably look to move on from him in the next draft if they do move on from him. I see a question here from the Snowman. My man, the Snowman, wants to know what the Raiders are doing. Did they let Renfrow go? I must have missed that. But letting Hollins go, I see, and obviously trading away Waller. I don't really know. If they are letting Renfrow go, I'm very concerned. I didn't see that. That just made a lot. That was kind of one thing that made me like the Raiders a decent bit, was Renfrow, Adams, and Jacoby Myers. Even if Jacoby Myers takes the same role as Hunter Renfrow, you can't really complain about it. Okay, they're letting Renfrow shop around. We'll see. I don't think any NFL team's going to be too interested in him. But, I mean, he's one of the best route runners in the league, per the words of Derwin James, one of the best safeties and coverage players in the league. So, obviously, that's high praise for the Hunter Renfrow. if he can shop around. I mean, that's good for him. And yeah, I don't know what the Raiders would be doing letting a guy like that shop around, because I mean, like, you've already let, like the Snowman says, now Hollins go and Darren Waller. And you've got Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball. You can't just have Jimmy Garoppolo only throwing to Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. That's not going to be a good offense. It's a good offense when you have a bunch of targets that he can distribute to. So not quite sure what they're doing. They'll have a good play action offense, as we know, since they have Josh Jacobs. Hopefully that's enough for them. But I mean, this is a tough AFC West. So, they'll figure it out. They'll probably obviously not win the division. They probably won't make the playoffs, but if they can reach 7 wins, I think that'll be a win. And I think Josh McDaniels keeps his job. Otherwise, they're going to be moving on from him. Before we move on, let's talk a little bit. Let's have the Podfather say something about Rival.
Hey, it's the Podfather. Now in the off season, I get into baseball, I get into basketball, and my preferred platform to play fantasy sports is Rival Fantasy, because Rival Fantasy has challenges where you can just take a guy and say, hey, this guy's going to score more fantasy points than this guy. They put 2 shortstops together, pick one. Point guards, pick one. Spoiler alert, you should pick Damian Lillard. Or they have the fantasy book where you can pick over, under, and up to 5 guys, and then the more you pick, your potential payout quickly escalates. And finally, I submit a bingo card, because you can just go over, under across the board, get your fantasy bingo card set, submit it. I'm not the biggest basketball or baseball expert, but I have a hell of a lot of fun playing fantasy sports on rivalfantasy.com. And the best part is, with promo code PLAYER, they refund up to $50 of any losses. So the promo code there is PLAYER on rivalfantasy.com. Go have some fun.
Yeah, so Go have some fun on Rival Fantasy, guys. The promo code PLAYER for $50 deposit, or a $50 matched insured bet. So if you bet $50 and you lose, you'll get it back, at least for the first time. So if you want to check that out, it's another platform that does some fantasy football in some weird ways, as well as some other sports. So check that out, you guys. That's Rival Fantasy. So we've got some more news that we've got to talk about, right? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he signed with the Lions. And I want to talk about this a little bit because, like I've been saying for a few episodes now, I don't understand what the Eagles are doing on the defensive side of the ball. They know that they've got a good offense. I know that they've got a good offense. You know that they've got a good offense. But, you still need a good defense. And letting Javon Hargrave go, letting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson go. They did bring back Slay and Bradbury eventually, but, still letting Kaiser White and TJ Edwards, your linebacker core, go. It's rough. And apparently here, they did want to keep Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. This is a report from Eagles beat reporter Jeff McClain, and it is reported that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was offered a multi-year deal, but he declined it, wanting more money, and decided to test free agency. Apparently, other NFL teams didn't view him the same way that the Eagles did. And now he's settling for a 1-year, $8 million deal on the Lions. Supposedly, the contract that was offered to him by the Eagles was a 3-year deal, averaging out about $12 million each year. Obviously, much better contract, but he thought he could get more. And when he did go back to the Eagles to be like, okay, fine, I'll take your offer, they had already re-signed James Bradbury and restructured some people and everything, so they didn't have the money for him anymore. And that's just, that's a tough break. That is, because Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is very good at football. He really is. He's probably one of the better safeties in the league. He's a scrappy dude. He's got heart in him. And he's a dog. He really is. And I think that's probably why NFL teams were a little bit worried about him. He has intensity issues, which I hate that NFL teams don't like that. He gets personal fouls and stuff and talks his heart out on Twitter, but that just means the dude cares, right? That just means the dude cares. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson leaving the Eagles, going to the Lions. That's good for the Lions. They'll have Will Harris and him. Fire the agent, the Snowman says. Firing out great comments today, Harry Snowman. Thank you. Yes, fire his agent, because, come on. I don't understand why you're going to tell your client to just to try to test free agency when a 3-year deal averaging out at $12 million a year is totally fine. Totally fine. Just accept that, because now you have to go to the Lions. Now obviously the Lions are amazing, but they're probably not going to make the Super Bowl, right? Well, they could. I guess I'm not going to get ahead of myself there, but I don't know. That's still kind of a downgrade to go from the Eagles to the Lions, especially making $4 million less. While we're still on the Eagles, I see a comment here on TikTok. Is Kenny Gainwell RB1, or will Penny step in and hold down his ceiling? I'm not going to go as far to say Kenny Gainwell's RB1. I will say that Kenny Gainwell will have an increase of snap share for sure. I think he averaged out about 25% last year. I think we could see that go up to 35% about. I don't think we're going to see him go over 40% over at least the course of the season. He might have a couple games where he kind of reaches that mark, goes a little bit over it. But I do think if Penny stays healthy, he'll be seeing about 50% snap share and not much more than that. So about 50%, I think, for Penny, 35 for Gainwell, like 15% for Boston Scott. And then, of course, if Penny gets hurt, let me rephrase that. When Penny gets hurt, then that's when we'll be seeing more Kenneth Gainwell, more. They'll probably, if that happens, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in like a Latavius Murray type, like a 30-year-old between the tackles grinder running back that is just kind of available to just kind of be there. But I do see a response to that comment on TikTok that the Eagles are probably drafting a running back. I'm kind of there too. I think they will be drafting a running back at some point. I really do. It's a deep class and it's needed. It's needed. Kenny Gainwell had his chance in the playoffs to prove to them that he could handle a full workload, and he did decent enough, but I think just the explosiveness and everything that they saw just also made them be like, okay, we don't have to give him the ball a crazy amount of times. We can just let him do it when we want him to do it. I think like his ceiling is going to be Tony Pollard like 2 years ago when he was starting to break into being, okay, this guy is going to be able to handle a really good workload. But I don't think we'll ever see like 2022 Pollard production by Gainwell. We'll see like 2021 production, which was still pretty good. Just, it was just like kind of a few boom games and you couldn't ever predict him. He'll be great for a DFS. He will be great for DFS. NFC East, let's stick with it. The Cowboys traded for Brandin Cooks. Brandin Cooks now ties the record for being traded the most among NFL players. So he's been traded now like 4 times. And I want to say that tied, I can't remember who I saw it was. I want to say it was Eric Dickerson. So if somebody wants to correct me on that, go ahead. But he's been traded 4 times now, which is the NFL record. And he's dropped all the way down from being traded for a first round pick to a second round pick, third round pick, and now a 5th round pick and next year's 6th round pick to the Cowboys. And even at 30 years old, he's still speedy. Last season, he averaged 12.3 yards per reception, which is pretty good. He only had 1 game, though, where he had 100 yards and a touchdown. In over 13 games, he only had 700 yards and 3 touchdowns scored. You tell me, you make the judgment here. Was it the Texans that held him back, or was it him? I'm probably going to take the side of the Texans, but it's probably a little bit of both too, right? But probably mostly like 80% the Texans, 20% him being a 30-year-old wide receiver. But for him to go to the Cowboys, I think that's a fantastic landing spot. I know I've got a couple Cowboys fans in the chat, namely Aaron Stewart. I'm very curious how excited he is about this move because I think if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm pumped. CeeDee Lamb needed someone else there on the offense that was actually good and had a pulse. And if Schultz is leaving, which it looks like it is, then Brandin Cooks fits perfectly into that second target position, right? And he will be able to stretch the field, and he's going to have some good games. He really will. This is a team that passes the ball plenty, and Dak Prescott's not afraid to sling it. So I like the move a lot. It's very cheap to get a guy like Brandin Cooks onto your team for only a 5th round pick and a 6th round pick next year. And yeah, it's an upgrade on T.Y. Hilton. It's like 3 T.Y. Hiltons, to be honest. So I'm excited if I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm excited if I'm a Brandin Cooks fantasy football owner because he was kind of not quite valueless, but he's a guy that's always disrespected anyway. And for him to not really have a clear situation to be 30 years old and coming off a rough season, he was disrespected even more. But I do think he'll bounce back. I'm going to go ahead and throw a number out. I'm going to give him 900 yards and 8 touchdowns next season. So 200 more yards and 5 more touchdowns next year is going to be my big guess for Brandin Cooks. Let's see. I do see a TikTok question here. Does Cooks push CeeDee down to a high-end wide receiver too? I don't really think so. It might even help CeeDee Lamb a little bit in that, defenses are going to have to respect Brandin Cooks. They will. I mean, I know he's 30 years old, but you're not going to be, you can't let him be open, right? So I think CeeDee Lamb will be open a little bit more than he was last season. He might see 2 to 3 less targets a game or something like that. But yeah, I think it'll be fine for CeeDee. I don't know if he'll ever actually. Right now, he's wide receiver 3 in dynasty rankings pretty much across the board. But I think that's obviously a ceiling. He's not going to ever be Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. So that's kind of where he's at. I don't know if he'll ever actually be a wide receiver 3 in terms of a fantasy football year, but will he be top 10? 100%. 100%. I still think he's going to be a pretty damn good fantasy wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. Yeah. So we see some talk here from the salary captain on YouTube, and it's just about the Eagles. They still have to extend Hurts, and they've just got some salary cap situations to work out, and that's kind of why they're losing their entire defense, which makes sense, right? You can't have it all, but I mean, come on, $12 million for one of the best safeties in the league every year is not that big of a deal. And yeah, I mean, I just wish they could have worked that out, because I think that he was a big part of that defense. Oh, and they lost Marcus Epps too. I mean, they lost both of their safeties. So I mean, what are they doing over here? And while we're still on the Cowboys, I'm going to agree with Harry Snowman here. He says Ferguson will replace Schultz. Yeah, I think Ferguson and the other guy, they had two tight ends last season, and both of them were totally fine. I think both of them together will pretty much equate to what Dalton Schultz brought to the offense. And the last thing I want to talk about here is just a funny tweet I saw. I guess it's not funny, but Austin Ekeler tweeted out, little workout pictures, all of his workout stuff, and was like, fantasy RB1 season loading. And it's like, all right, if you want that, then why leave the Chargers? Why are you trying to be a fantasy football RB1 again, but leave the best situation possible for you? You don't care about fantasy football, Austin Ekeler. You just want to show off your workout. Come on, man. Come on, man. So I just wanted to talk about that for a second, just because, I mean, it's just silly to me. I don't understand why he's requesting the trade, but also cares about how he does in fantasy football. If you care about how you do in fantasy football, Mr. Ekeler, then stay with the Chargers. And with that, everyone, I am going to sign off. Thank you all for joining. You have a fantastic Monday, fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you all tomorrow, 10 a.m. for another episode of The Wake and Take.